today, and this study covers one chapter. It covers 1 Kings chapter number 5, and we will attempt to answer two different sets of questions over 1 Kings chapter 5 today. The first question is this: to what great tasks did Solomon first set his hand, and what motives moved him to undertake it? And are we as ready to speak to a non-Christian friend of the goodness of God and our desire to serve him, as Solomon was to speak to Hiram? And secondly, what can we learn from the fact that even in the arrangements that Solomon made for Hiram for materials and skilled labor, he acted according to the wisdom given him by God? So let's look at what Solomon arranges with King Hiram of Tyre in 1 Kings chapter number 5. When Hiram king of Tyre heard that Solomon had been anointed king to succeed his father David, he sent his envoys to Solomon because he had always been on friendly terms with David. And Solomon sent back this message to Hiram: "You know that because of the wars waged against my father David from all sides, he could not build a temple for the name of the Lord his God until the Lord put his enemies under his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side, and there is no adversary or disaster. And I intend, therefore, to build a temple for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord told my father David, when he said, 'Your son, whom I will put on the throne in your place, will build the temple for my name.' So give orders that cedars of Lebanon be cut for me. My men will work with yours, and I will pay you for your men whatever wages you set. You know that we have no one so skilled in felling timber as the Sidonians." And when Hiram heard Solomon's message, he was greatly pleased. And he said, "Praise be to the Lord today, for he has given David a wise son to rule over this great nation." So Hiram sent word to Solomon: "I have received the message you sent me, and I will do all you want in providing the cedar and the juniper logs. My men will haul them down from Lebanon to the Mediterranean Sea, and I will float them as rafts by sea to the place that you specify. And there I will separate them, and you can take them away, and you are to grant my wish by providing food for my royal household." In this way Hiram kept Solomon supplied with all the cedar and juniper logs that he wanted, and Solomon gave him 20,000 cores of wheat as food for his household, in addition to 20,000 baths of pressed olive oil. And Solomon continued to do this for Hiram year after year. And the Lord gave Solomon wisdom just as he had promised him. And there were peaceful relations between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them made a treaty. King Solomon conscripted laborers from all Israel, 30,000 men. He sent them off to Lebanon in shifts of 10,000 a month, so they spent 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of the forced labor. Solomon had 70,000 carriers and 80,000 stone cutters in the hills, as well as 3,300 foremen who supervised the project and removed from the quarry large blocks of high-grade stone to provide a foundation of dressed stone for the temple. The craftsmen of Solomon and Hiram and workers from Byblos cut and prepared the timber and stone for the building of the temple. Let's look now at the questions for 1 Kings chapter 5. To what great task did Solomon set his hand, and what motives moved him to undertake it? And are we as ready to speak to a non-Christian friend of the goodness of God and of our desire to serve him, as Solomon was to speak to King Hiram? Well, in this chapter, Solomon sets to the task of building a temple in honor of the Lord. And he's able now to do something his father David was unable to do because he was enjoying a time of peace with all of his neighbors. And he seeks the help here of a foreign king to help him build the temple. He needs lumber from Lebanon. And this foreign king is so thrilled with the opportunity, and he does then everything he can to help Solomon. Now, maybe this speaks something to the church today. Perhaps the church needs to be bolder when it comes to inviting the lost to aid them in their honoring of the Lord. Most people, of course, will not be interested in helping. But some, and we would probably marvel at it, and they would marvel at the thought that they were even asked to help. After all, the resources of this world ultimately belong to God, whether they are in the hands of a believer or they're in the hands of an unbeliever. the resources that we need are in the hands of outsiders. And like we always say, hey, it never hurts to ask. And the wisdom of Solomon proves that fact quite well. Second question, what can we learn from the fact that even in the arrangements that Solomon made with Hiram for materials and skilled labor, he acted according to the wisdom given him by God? Well, having a plan is actually always a pretty good idea. Planning is not a sin, and oftentimes I'm afraid some people tend to be a little bit hyper-spiritual, and they just want to leave everything up to God, and the Lord will take care of everything. Well, ultimately, yes, the Lord does take care of everything, but He takes care of things by giving us wisdom. He doesn't encourage us to ask for wisdom because He plans on taking care of all the details Himself. He encourages us to ask for wisdom because He intends for us to use it. And when we don't use the gifts that He gives us, we don't use the talents in the parable that He gives, we don't use those as He wants us to do, He promises that He will take those gifts away from us, and in the parable of the talents, He gives those gifts to someone else. So plan on doing something wonderful for the Lord. Plan on being a good servant of the Lord. Start to see things through. Don't give up. Come up with a plan. Ask God's blessing upon that plan and carry it out. I hope this study's been a blessing to you today. Hope God is richly blessing your day so far, and may He continue